For most of human history, music did nothing. Not because ancient humans didn't have it, they did. Bone flutes found in European caves date back over 40,000 years. Rhythm almost certainly came even earlier, but for most of that time, nobody would have described music as emotional. It was functional. It marked rituals, it coordinated group movement, it filled silence around fires at night. And then something strange started happening inside human brains, something that was never supposed to happen at all. You've probably felt it. A song comes on, maybe one you haven't heard in years, maybe one you've heard 1,000 times, and without warning your throat tightens, your eyes fill, sometimes tears actually fall. And the strangest part is that nothing sad is happening. Nobody died. You aren't in pain, you are sitting completely still while sound waves travel through air, and somehow your body responds as if something deeply important is occurring. That reaction has a name. Researchers call it music-induced chills, or more formally frisson. And scientists have spent decades trying to understand why it exists at all. Because here's the thing, it shouldn't. From a purely biological standpoint, crying at music makes no sense. Tears evolved as a response to pain, or to social distress, or to losing something that mattered. Music is none of those things. A song cannot hurt you. A chord progression cannot threaten your survival. And yet somewhere in the human brain, music is being processed not as sound, but as something else entirely. Something that feels real in a way that bypasses logic completely. To understand why, you have to go back much further than the first concert hall, much further than the first instrument. You have to go back to before humans were fully human at all. Mammals are social animals, that sounds simple, but the implications run very deep. For most creatures on Earth, survival is a solo project. A fish doesn't need other fish to feel safe. A spider doesn't grieve when it's alone. But mammals, particularly primates, evolved in tight social groups where connection wasn't optional. It was biological infrastructure. Being close to others meant warmth, protection, shared food, warning calls when predators approached. Losing that connection wasn't uncomfortable, it was dangerous. And so mammal brains evolved an alarm system. Separation distress. The specific terrible feeling of being cut off from your group. You can hear it in puppies crying alone in a room. You can hear it in infant primates calling for their mothers. You can hear it in human babies who have never once been taught that being alone is frightening, and yet cry the moment they sense it anyway. That ancient alarm is still running inside you right now. And here's where music enters. Several researchers, including neuroscientist Jaak Panksepp, noticed something unexpected. The feeling humans describe during musical chills shares striking similarities with the neural response to separation distress. The same pathways, the same ancient circuitry. Music somehow was triggering the brain's social alarm system. Not fully, not in a way that caused panic, but enough to produce a physiological response, enough to make the body briefly feel something it associated with deep connection or the loss of it. Think about what music actually sounds like. Slow, swelling strings, a voice breaking slightly on a high note, a melody that rises and hesitates before resolving. These patterns are not random choices composers make for aesthetic reasons. They mirror, almost precisely, the acoustic structure of human distress calls, the sounds mammals make when separated, when grieving, when reaching for something just out of reach. Your brain isn't being fooled exactly, it knows you're listening to music, but some older, deeper part of it hears something else. It hears the sound of someone calling out. And it responds. This explains something that has puzzled researchers for years. Why does sad music feel good? It seems contradictory. If music is activating ancient distress circuitry, why do people seek it out voluntarily? Why do humans choose to sit alone and listen to the most heartbreaking songs they know, sometimes repeatedly, sometimes for hours? Part of the answer may involve a hormone called prolactin. Prolactin is released during grief and loss. Its function is partially to comfort, to smooth the edges of pain and make it survivable. When music triggers mild distress signals, the brain may release prolactin in response. But because the distress isn't real, there's no actual loss to process. You get the chemical comfort without the wound underneath it, sadness without the cost, which is why beautiful, melancholic music can feel almost unbearably good in a way that's nearly impossible to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. But there's another layer, and this one goes even deeper. Humans are pattern animals. Your brain is constantly predicting what comes next. Every conversation, every footstep, every glance across a room, your brain is quietly running simulations, building expectations, monitoring whether reality matches them. This prediction system is ancient. It kept your ancestors alive. Correctly anticipating whether a rustle in the grass was wind or a predator was the difference between survival and death. Music hijacks this system completely. A skilled composer builds expectation and then delays it, creates tension and then releases it at precisely the right moment. When a musical resolution lands after enough suspense, your brain's prediction system lights up with something close to reward. The chills many people feel often arrive at exactly these moments, not the sad parts necessarily. the resolved parts, the moments where something expected finally arrives, or something unexpected arrives instead and turns out to be better than you anticipated. Your body is reacting to the feeling of being right, of the world briefly making sense, of order emerging from tension. That sensation is ancient and powerful, and most people feel it most strongly in music, because music is one of the few places in modern life where tension and resolution are perfectly engineered to affect a human nervous system. And then there's memory, which may be the most powerful mechanism of all. The brain stores emotional memories differently from ordinary ones. A regular memory degrades over time, details blur, faces fade, but emotional memories are encoded more deeply, locked to the sensory experience surrounding them. A smell, a texture, a specific quality of light and sound, particularly music. A song present during a powerful emotional moment becomes fused to that moment neurologically. Years later, hearing it again doesn't just remind you of that time, it partially reconstructs it. The same neural networks fire, the same emotional state resurfaces, briefly, incompletely, but unmistakably. You aren't just remembering. You are partially re-experiencing, and sometimes the feeling that produces isn't quite sadness and isn't quite joy. It's something that doesn't have a clean name in English, a bittersweet ache for something that existed and no longer does, a version of you that is gone, a moment that was real and cannot be returned to. Some languages have words for this. Portuguese has saudade. The Welsh have hireth. These words describe the particular grief of longing for something you loved that cannot be recovered. And music seems to produce this feeling more reliably than almost anything else humans have discovered. Which raises one final question: why does any of this feel meaningful? Why does a stranger's voice singing over instruments in a language you might not even speak reach into your chest and do something real there? Some researchers believe music may have originally functioned as social glue. Before language was sophisticated enough to carry complex emotion, shared sound could signal group identity, shared feeling, collective experience. A group moving together, breathing together, feeling the same rhythmic pulse at the same moment, those are not small things to a species that survive by staying together. Music may have been one of the earliest technologies humans had for feeling genuinely connected to each other, and that ancient function may still be running. When a song hits you in a way you can't explain, part of what you may be feeling is the ghost of that original purpose, the sensation of not being alone, of belonging to something larger, of being momentarily synchronized with other human hearts across time. Tonight, a song is going to come on, maybe unexpectedly, maybe when you forgot you knew. Your throat will tighten slightly, your eyes might fill, and your rational brain will have no explanation for why sound waves rearranged your entire emotional state in 3 minutes and 40 seconds. But now you do.